Feeling hot, hot, hot. It's Planet 417.
It's hot.
Maybe we'll talk about the weather today. Maybe something else.
Yeah.
Right after
I
this.
don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, well, we're here still.
We're talking about the difference. We're pre-talking. We're
Pre-talking,
pre-showing
pre-showing.
about the difference in a man and woman's brain, and it's it's stark difference. It's shocking.
Just a little bit different.
By
Shocking.
design.
By design.
Obviously by
Thank you.
design.
Thank you, guys.
Physically different.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Yep. Imagine that.
Male babies get a serotonin bath at some point in the womb, which destroys some of the connections between the two different hemispheres.
No
Which means
joke.
no joke. Which means that like the emotional side does not wash over into the
As much, yeah.
as much
Yeah.
into the rational, logical thinking side, and,
Really?
and vice versa. Yeah,
I've never heard an explanation.
that's
All the God
actually-
design.
Yeah,
It's pretty
that's
cool.
That's legit.
We're
That's,
supposed to be different.
it is. It's so that we can go, shut that off, so that we can go kill whatever's coming to attack our.
Ah,
Yeah, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So if you think your guy isn't in touch with his emotions, he's not, and he's not supposed to be.
I
As
would
much.
push back on that. Yeah, he is supposed to be, just not as much.
As much.
And it is a work. Self-discovery is a really important thing,
Well, you just got back,
is.
didn't you?
right? Yeah. Yeah,
kinda
learning-
want one of those-
self-awareness is one of those. Yeah.
Deep thoughts.
Wayne's World.
Love
with Chris
Wayne's
Ballard.
Yeah. Now you just mixed two different SNL skits right there, but that's fine.
Well,
Yeah,
like-
no, I just discovered. I think most people, live an unexamined life. That's after 28 years of ministry, that's one of my great conclusions.
I 100% agree with
Yeah.
that. You're meaning like they do not think deeply about themselves. Is
Yeah.
that what you mean?
Well, so the way I've described kind of sabbatical is, I have a practice of Sabbath in my life. I take breaks. I take a day off. I take moments during the day, and I take vacations. Right, all those things to just stop, pause, reflect, and learn. Right, but it's almost like because life is so crazy,
It is.
You have time to refill the gas tank. You have time to rotate the tires. You have time to get an oil change. But you've been ignoring maybe some engine failure or a problem with the transmission. And so sabbatical was a time to really get into the shop with Jesus, so to speak, and do that deeper work. And so you don't realize how much you need it until you do it. But I'm
Yeah.
learning that most people don't really stop at all to and I don't want to, that sounds smug. I don't mean it that way. this is observation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That a lot of
yeah.
people don't really stop and think about, why do I respond to things that way?
They
You don't
absolutely
you're
don't.
just not self-aware. You don't learn about past mistakes, failures. You just kind of
It's hard.
push it off and move on to the next thing, and then wonder why you're in the making the same mistakes again.
It's hard for a lot of people because you don't have the time.
Yeah, it's
Or you think you don't have, or you don't make the
Or
time.
don't make the
you've
time.
Whatever it is.
You've filled your life with so much that you don't have time.
But there are professions, yours and college professors and things that it's built into
Right.
the profession sabbatical. The rest of our professions, we have not done that.
Right.
Maybe we
They're
should
like,
have.
well, and I mean the American culture too, because there's other cultures out there that do that. They take
Right.
extended time off of
you're
work.
right.
That we heard that in Canada. Like,
Siesta.
Yeah, we talked to. I was talking to a lady that was checking me out at a store, and she's like, "Where are you from?" And I told her, and she's like, "I think she's originally from England," and she said something about vacation, and she's like, "Oh
No,
yeah."
she said holiday.
Yeah, the holiday was the word they used a lot, and she's like, "Oh, you just." Well, I was explaining to her the concept of dead week,
Ah,
and she was like, "1 week?" I'm like,
Muerta.
"Yeah, yes," and I because we got to talk about sports, and then blah blah blah, end up in dead week, and it's like she's like, "I can't believe that there's 1 week," and I'm like, "Yep."
yeah.
That's what we've done to ourselves.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do. Well, you mentioned like most professions ought to do it.
Yeah.
The average tenure is way too short. Why would a company invest in you to have a sabbatical when you're only going to be with them for 2 years and
Which
you're going to
is
move on to
valid.
the next
I
thing
see
anyway?
the company's side on that
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot
Well,
of
and
sense.
I do think and I don't know where, maybe the American work ethic, the work spirit just came from the fact that, hey, we were the people who ended up over here to get away from the way things were in other places, right? We're that, pioneer spirit
the first wave.
and the first wave. And then, we had to work, the ancestors had to work themselves nearly to death to survive it. And so, and it is, because it's a very American thing to do the whole kind of work yourself or commit, and then it just somehow is escalated over and over and over with the addition of other things.
And that's and there's always this tension: are we busy or are we not busy? Because the 40-hour work week is a modern invention.
Yeah.
And people. It's interesting, the conversation I've heard. I'm old enough now to have heard, I think, both sides of this conversation.
Right.
Because the conversation we're hearing now is a 40-hour work week. Why would you spend 40 hours working just so you can live the rest of your life? Whereas, the beginning of this is like, we only have to work 40 hours. I mean, that was where it came from, is to limit the hours
right.
people work to
Right.
40. And now, we have a significant amount of our population that thinks that working 40 hours a week is too much.
I mean, to be 40 hours is very reasonable.
It is a weird tension, right? Because there's this other side of me. It's like we need people to have a stronger work ethic,
Right.
right? And we do.
Oh, yeah.
But that doesn't mean quantity of hours.
It does not.
It means focus and quality of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you produce?
Yeah.
What do you produce? And is it worthwhile? And are you producing? And so for my employees, I really try hard to not tell them they have work hours. They have a job to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't care where or when you do your job. It just needs to get done. And that works for a certain
Right. Yeah.
amount of people.
In
It does
my-
not work for everybody.
In
work
my
for
perfect
everybody.
world, every employee I have or that I'm over would really function more like an independent contractor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want them to be entrepreneurial like me. Like, hey, I've given you this job description. Now, rather than me, just spelling it out for you, go get it done and show me you're creative and show me your drive and go do it. Unfortunately, I've learned not everybody works that
Right.
way.
And
No.
your
some
world
people
is
need you to
not
stand over them.
primarily financially compensated.
Correct.
So that works for you. Mine
Could
is, which
work
means
for
on my side, I have to make sure that compensation is tied to productivity.
Right.
So I do things like that as well to try to keep everybody's eyes on the ball. But even that will not align everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
It just won't do it. Something that was said earlier made me think. One of the I'm sure I got it from somebody else, but I've forgotten who it is, which means it's mine now, right?
Yeah, once you say it the third time, it's yours.
Is yours-
You
is-
start with so-and-so said, then I heard once. And then you just say it.
And then it's mine.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
yours. Yeah.
So I push back on myself first,
That's a joke, by the way.
I'm tracking now. I was like, what are we talking
and
about?
then other people say, that makes me mad, or he made me mad, and I'm like, no.
No.
That doesn't
Yeah.
make me mad. He didn't make me mad. I decided to get mad about
that's
the
right.
situation.
About something.
And that has been one
Oh,
of
there's
those.
a whole lot of people mad about things right now.
Well, that's one of the most useful things that you can. I have
Well,
personally
it's shirking responsibility.
come up on.
right?
Yeah.
And again, it's that self-awareness.
I have a choice to decide how I'm going to respond to any
Oh,
input, and if I
100%.
don't,
Yeah.
that's a me problem.
Yeah.
That's a lack of self-control.
Well, and that's again where I think self-discovery is important, because we are emotional. Even men are emotional. We tend to wrongly say the word emotional and tie that to having tears or whatever.
Yeah,
but
well, there's a lot
we-
more
there-
Go to any football game.
yeah,
right?
I mean, yeah. So essentially, I mean, Dr. Dodd says there's 7 primary emotions. And
really,
then
I
other-
thought there were 3. See,
Right,
That's
yeah.
all I knew.
Yeah. So, but it's up to us to
Happy,
know.
sad, and I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. A
Indifferent.
little more complex than that.
Happy, sad, and
But it's up to us to be able to learn to say, here's the emotion I'm feeling, and then say why. And now how am I going to respond?
Yeah.
But what you talked about was a blame game. You made me
Right.
angry.
Yeah.
Oh,
You made me
That
afraid.
that made me mad.
Yeah.
Blaming the situation or the person.
Or the person.
rather than taking responsibility for your own reaction. To
Reactions. That's the thing.
And there's so much power in that because if
Yes.
somebody else can make you, by what they do, respond in a certain way,
pretty weak-minded,
they're in
right?
Control.
Yeah.
They're in control.
And
not
I
you.
would say that's pretty weak-minded on your
it
part.
is. It is. They're in control, not you.
Right.
Yeah. So.
That's an interesting, deep conversation right there. I'm just sitting here taking this all in. I'm very tired. Slept for several nights in a row, and people truly do not think deeply about themselves. I don't think. I think we fill our time and our minds with a lot of things that really we can't change. We can't. There's so many distractions. I think that's the best way to put it. There's so many distractions in the modern world. They're just endless.
That's true, and when you do have those reflective times, and I think it happens for everybody, and I think now at 53, I think what I want to do is try to seek these out more often. There are literal world-shattering moments in everybody's life
Oh yeah.
where you're just walking along and your brain suddenly realizes and the world shatters because the way you thought things were, your mind finally figured out either it's not the way they are, or it's not the only way they could be, or but just your whole perspective. I mean, it's a complete paradigm shift, and it can be seismic, I think is the word I want.
Yeah,
to
I
use.
mean,
It's
it can
just like,
happen by thought or an event. I mean, an
Yeah,
event
either
can
one.
trigger
It
it,
can be
or thought
seismic,
can trigger it.
but then there's this ripple effect that goes through your whole life.
Yeah.
We were
Yes.
just talking in a men's Bible study, 1 Peter chapter 1, and so foreknowledge, and that whole conversation came up of. Anyway, we won't get into that. But bottom line was, a man tells a story of how just even in PE class, because he moved around so much, he never got chosen to be a captain. He never got
It's a
picked
bummer,
Never got picked.
first.
too.
So now that word chosen has baggage. So in a theological construct, what does it mean that God chose me, or that whole
Yeah.
theological conversation?
Interesting.
But he had to kind of deal with the baggage of just even a simple word, chose. And we don't think about how that catastrophic event is still having an impact today in a single word. So that word
Interesting.
it's different.
chosen has a positive connotation to me, but to him there were negative undertones.
And everybody's got their own words.
Yeah. So
and
when
you
I
don't
say
know
a
what they
word
are.
and you say a word, we kind of have this commonality of meaning, but I don't have the baggage that you have, and you don't have the baggage I have. And so people don't understand. And so when we use words like triggered, that is real. We need to think more deeply about that.
Yeah.
But there's weight to words. And cultures have different meanings. And
Yes.
anyway, so I'm I'm down the rabbit hole now. But it's fascinating stuff.
It is. It's good
Well,
talk.
it is, because everybody is operating off of their own experiences and their own pluses and minuses of life. And I think last year, I made a conscious effort to not, the small town, the rumor mill, and it happens in big towns, big cities too. The rumor mill can really get going.
Yeah, it can churn.
And there was a point where it's probably one of these changes that you mentioned where I thought, I'm not going to get too worked up about anything somebody tells me. unless I saw it with my own eyes.
There you go.
Or I, know without a shadow of a doubt that it happened or didn't happen or whatever it was. Because, you just don't know. You don't know if you were there. You don't know if you lived it. And, I'm not going to get too worked up about that stuff.
Talk about being weak-minded. I don't want to be that weak-minded person that whoever talks to me first wins the narrative.
Yes.
Yes.
To me, that's a sign of having a weak mind. So I've learned through life, I'm not going to believe the first story I hear as the gospel story. So you kind of have to get a 360 view of the situation. I wish more people would take time, and because that's how gossip has power, right?
I think this is from an old King of Queens episode.
Oh, I love it. Come on.
Good show. And it's Arthur Stiller.
The old guy.
The old guy,
Dad.
Carrie's dad. Yeah. He's picked to be on a jury.
Yes.
And so, in a criminal jury trial, the prosecution goes first, and you're hearing the inner monologue from Carrie's dad. It's not Arthur. Arthur is his name.
Arthur's his name on the show, right?
On the show, but Stiller is his real last name. So I merged those
Stiller's
two.
dad?
Ben Stiller's dad.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And he's like, this guy's guilty. He's just, oh my gosh, and we're going to fry this guy.
Fry him.
He's just so guilty. And then the defense comes up and says, he was framed.
Yeah.
This guy didn't do it at all. It's a put-up job.
Whatever he heard last.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah,
he hears
just
last
that-
is what he
that-
believes.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's also a weak mind.
Yeah, and then you think about
Yeah.
the inundation of media and culture we live in today.
Holy macaroni.
And
yeah,
just
we
as
do.
a tangent, I got to say, I'm loving X or Twitter.
The
now.
Twitter.
Oh, are you? Is it growing on you?
It's now probably taken over from Facebook, from where I probably spend the majority of my social media time.
Yeah.
It's probably now on X, because it's so unfiltered now. And the community notes, I mean, it's now glaringly different. What you get in that curated feed from like the Facebook or ABC, NBC, CBS, and what you'll get if you have a wide swath selection of people you follow on Twitter, it's a whole different thing.
I'm hearing several people say that, but here's my only problem with any of this, is that people can say anything they want to say on their Twitter account or their X account or their Facebook account, and it doesn't mean it's true.
Correct.
And that's my problem. That's where I have and the problem is there's no way to fact check that stuff.
Well, yes and no.
A lot of it.
That's one of the things that X has
It's
gotten
like,
good with,
for
the community
example,
notes.
It's like I'm a okay, so somebody posts something about a medical post, let's say,
Right.
and then someone chimes in and says, "I am a doctor. I practice medicine," and blah 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 blah. Nobody knows if that person's really a doctor.
Sure. I mean, you can look it up and all of that stuff. But what I like about X is the community notes. And
what are community notes? Explain. I don't know what that
so
is.
if
I'm not on it.
you can get to a level in Twitter or X where you are allowed to be a community commenter. And I'm somewhere in the process of reaching the level where I could do that.
Okay.
And then you can, on somebody's tweet, you can go, I'm adding a note. Hey, this is what they said. By the way, here's a source that either clarifies, so what they said is right, and here's some more information, or what they said is maybe not quite right, and here's another way to look at it. Here's a better explanation, or that's complete and total BS.
Malarkey, yeah.
And what's really funny is CNN is getting hammered
with notes.
with notes. I mean, they'll like post a headline this, and like the community notes people are just like, no, that's absolutely wrong, and here's the truth. And we could never do that before. You couldn't go on Dan Rather and say everything that guy's telling you is like,
you can't.
like the My Cousin
there's no way
Benny
to fact check
opening.
Dan.
Everything that guy just says. But you can do that on X, and you can do it on Facebook, but it's a little less formal. In fact, it happened the other day. I had this whole opening ceremonies thing with that.
Yeah.
People were saying,
What's that? I've not heard about this.
"You're kidding, right?"
Yes.
Please
Gosh,
don't.
I've had enough.
I have too, and I don't want
enough.
to. I don't want to talk about
But
that.
you can
I
say-
want to
yeah.
make the point, which was because people said, "Oh, it wasn't the Last Supper," and there was
Producer said it was.
yeah. The producer said it was. It was on ESPN, and I usually what I do is I post the link. I post the thing without comment. So you don't have to read what Will says. You can read what this is.
That struck me as funny for some reason.
Okay.
What would Will say?
What would Will say?
The gospel of Will.
And it was the link to the ESPN where it's like the organizers apologized for the depiction of the Last Supper, and those were the words.
So you've got, and I'm gathering,
and somebody had said, blah 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 blah.
Word vomit.
So yeah, 'cause
Okay, and I'm like,
we
well,
have conflicting things because we have artistic.
that they said, well, what's your source? I'm like, well, the source is ESPN citing the organizers who
But
said
were the
that's the source,
were
and
the-
then dirty delete after that.
But were the
it's gone.
did the organizers say we apologize for the depiction, or did ESPN say the organizers apologize for the depiction? Because those are two different
ESPN
meanings,
said
right?
the organizers apologized that people were offended by the depiction. Not
I'm sorry I
they didn't
offended you.
apologize for the depiction.
I'm sorry you're weak-minded and I
Yeah,
offended you. Is
that's
that
right. That's what they did.
So here's my whole synopsis of this whole event. We can't do anything about that. Nothing.
Right.
But we absolutely can affect the people in our daily lives.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that's going to change any of this.
Well, and
Any of it.
the ability of people to jump to conclusions based on what they see that you post or say on social media is, we've got an incredible gymnastic team in that realm.
They were fun to watch last night. The guys were.
No, I mean on social media.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about gymnastics. I thought we were back to
Oh,
the
it was a
Rio
pun.
Olympics.
It was a pun. It
Oh,
was a
I got
pun.
it now. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was thinking way too literally.
I
See,
own
that's
my
that guy
brain.
brain.
Yeah, that's right. Because you post this link, right?
That's weird.
I posted the Babylon Bee link because that's the best source of news I've ever found.
The funniest source of
Not the bee and the bee. And it's like, why are you so offended? I'm like, I didn't say I was offended. Where did I say I was offended? I never said I was offended. I pointed out that this happened. It's my choice whether I'm going to get offended or
Right.
not.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't say I was offended.
Yeah,
I thought
'cause
this was an interesting article. I shared it with the world. Maybe I was saying, hey, isn't this cool? You don't know. I mean, you know me, so you probably know how I might feel about something like that, but I didn't say that. So we're so quick to attribute motive and I don't know what else to people when they post or say things that maybe isn't there. In fact, I had somebody take it the other way. I posted something that was actually in opposition and they thought I was supporting them and they clicked like. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Because you knew them and you're like,
I didn't correct them.
I'm just like, I'm so completely over the hourly scandal. Does that make sense?
Yep.
We may have had some sort of technical difficulty because Dwayne said tuned into the waffle, but was surprised to see plugged in with Rodney McCann was on. So
Oh,
maybe
I'm-
we-
Oh,
Screen
it's
behind
because
us.
the screen. Oh, you're so funny. Our producer and
Oh,
all of
that is
us that
funny.
didn't notice.
I actually did notice. I thought, oh, we're just plugging Rodney.
Yeah, we're
Plugging Rodney.
Rodney. Tune in Monday
Rodney
mornings
plug.
for Plugged In
That
with
makes
Rodney
more sense.
McCann. There you go. The Morning Waffle.
That looks
We're back.
better.
Yeah.
I feel so refreshed now.
We all sat down. We all looked at it.
I did.
No,
I
I
looked
did.
at it and
Plugged
noticed
in
it was
Rodney
different.
McCann.
My brain was like, nah, I'm not going
Booyah.
to deal with that.
Yeah.
I am so
Thanks, Dwayne.
tired of the hourly scandal because that's what I'm equating these things to anymore. Is there what's the new scandal? What's the new? These people post this. These people post this, and it's fine to share it. That doesn't bother me. But then we have this whole cycle of the pushback, and then my pastor says this, my best friend says this. Shared this post of somebody again you don't know and don't know their true intentions and don't know if they're even a real human doing real things, and I'm just kind of over it. I don't know what else to say.
Well, it's funny. You and several other people said, man, you came back from sabbatical at just the right time. Look at all this. And I thought, it wouldn't matter what week I come back. There's always a scandal of the day, a scandal of the
meme that,
hour.
like, we are 0 days from an unprecedented event,
Yep.
which is hilarious.
It is.
I do agree with the idea that you probably need to look at the source before you share, and I've been guilty of
good
not
grief,
doing
yes.
enough from that. But there are specific websites and Facebook pages and everything out there that specifically post satirical, parody, and triggering articles just to get you
Absolutely.
to share. And they're probably produced by the people that you don't agree with to make you look stupid
Yep.
for sharing
That's
them.
100% accurate.
And I've seen that happen.
Oh, it was
and
like
they'll
the-
share that and like, that either is too good to be true, or and you go and you got to sometimes you got to bury it.
Yeah.
You got to really dig, and you got to say everything on this website is satirical.
So here's
There it is.
the tension, right?
Yeah.
Is that you really should take 24 hours at least before you make comment on anything,
I
right?
don't disagree with that.
And yet the news cycle doesn't allow for that.
No,
Nope.
it
Because
doesn't.
everybody's moved on by the
Everybody's
time
moved
you've
on.
weighed your words and
Yeah.
your thoughts.
Story's
and
over.
So you can
Show's
see
over.
how culture is being programmed for outrage and for a quick response. It's like, well, I gotta get on this now, or it's going to be past. And I don't think anybody reasons it out like that, but you kind of intuitively know that if I don't comment now, I've missed the moment.
Yeah.
But wisdom says, give it a second, let
Pump
it
the
breathe.
brakes.
Yep. Think about this. Maybe gather a couple sources and process, then comment.
I'm going to share my favorite quote again. If you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Because it's Mother Teresa. Because, and it's not just your family. I don't put that as in just the people who live in my house.
Your circle.
Your circle, your people. Go love your people, because that, at the end of the day, that truly is the only way anything in this crazy unhinged world is going to change, is if we make waves in our own, all of us, and I mean every single
And
person.
there's nothing wrong with broadening your circle when you have the
Good
capacity
Lord,
to do that.
no.
Yeah,
There's
please.
nothing. Please broaden your circle, because it is important to get other people's opinions and ideas. Well, and one of the things that was shared amongst of all of this is, Jesus dined with thieves and, sinners and all this stuff. We all know that. And I mean, and my other
He didn't
comment,
excuse it.
No, he didn't excuse it, but you can hang out and have a sandwich with them.
Absolutely.
Sandwich.
My thing is you're not going to get anybody to come to church with you by attacking them on Facebook. And if you want to lead somebody to the truth, you've got to welcome them into your home or the church in order to do that.
And so there's
That's my whole thing. I've
There's
thought about it deeply this week.
potentially an important distinction to make, and which is there's a difference between attacking a person or people or groups of people and commenting about behavior.
Oh, 100%.
and-
It's
and
okay to call out
conduct.
behavior. I'm not saying
You're a manipulator.
yeah.
Is different than saying, I feel like you were trying to manipulate me there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You used
Yeah.
a tactic that was unhealthy versus I'm calling you
Right.
this.
Right.
It's
the problem
perfectly
is when
okay.
people begin to identify themselves. My identity is my bad behavior.
You're attacking
Right.
me. Yeah.
So that the attack on the behavior feels like a personal
You're
attack.
toxic.
And that was
Right.
intentional.
It's
That was
perfectly
intentional
okay
design.
to say, hey, this is in my mind, this goes against the moral, the morality, the grain that we're all supposed to be following, and this makes me uncomfortable for society. It's completely okay to say that. But this whole
They're out to get us.
they're out to get us, and
Well, that's why
I don't know.
You're
I'm just
right.
so
And-
over
and-
it.
And my world just shattered. No, I'm kidding. But that's why phrases like toxic masculinity and white fragility are not helpful,
Well, and again,
because
words have meaning.
they paint people
yeah.
with a
It's a wide swath.
with a
instead of-
wide
yeah.
swath because it's toxic behavior. It is perhaps unfair advantage, which is not neither one of which is limited to a particular group of people.
Right.
Toxic behavior goes beyond gender and race.
Everybody's capable of
Privilege goes
doing
beyond
toxic
yeah.
things.
gender and race. There are privileged people of every race and gender, far more privileged than we will ever be. And there are people that are nowhere near as privileged as we are.
Yeah.
And that may accrue in some circumstances to certain subsets that you can artificially draw a ring around and say that group, but it's not really helpful to do that, I don't think.
No, and it's the problem is we've every time this stuff gets ratcheted up, it just is more and more of a reason for them to do it again and again and bigger and get more of a response and more of an outcry. And at some point, we've just got to turn this crap off. I don't know what else to say.
And to some extent, you have to acknowledge that while you can give everyone the benefit of the doubt, you have to understand not everyone's motives are pure.
100% they're not. Absolutely not.
And not everyone that's on the TV, waving their flag or whatever has your best or anybody else's or who are they telling best intentions at heart. They may just want the power.
Or the money. I mean, you don't know what their intention is. You don't know if their intention is to, be helpful and supportive and loving, or if their intention is to simply make money.
But that's why we have to examine ourselves first deeply.
Yeah.
And then look deeply into those things and say, am I allowing my reactions to determine, my feelings to determine how I'm going to conduct myself, or am I taking the beat to say, let me analyze this. How did that make me feel? Why did I feel that way? And is that an appropriate response? And is it true?
Yeah.
We've been having a lot of conversations around, in my circle about, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary before we say things?
Yep.
That's a good point.
It's the book of James right there.
I'm a big fan of, is it necessary? Because I don't like people talking to me. So you didn't have to tell me that. I mean, good morning. You didn't have to tell me that. I knew it was a good morning. Don't tell me it was good morning. It's not necessary.
That's a little extreme there, Will.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll back off.
Is it? Is it? I kept seeing this thing over the week about this weird color of green and brat culture. And I was like, what the heck is that?
Oh, I've heard enough about that.
And I hadn't heard anything about it. And so I read an article about what is this? And it basically is it's off of an album from Charlie something. I can't remember her name. Anyway, and I'm like, this whole article, and it was a news article, and it was just kind of laying out a timeline of the points of how it became a thing. And apparently, they had hot girl summer, and now we're apparently having brat summer. And I'm not doing any of that. I'm just doing my normal stuff.
I don't know what that means.
I just crawled out from under a rock. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and I'm like, but
years
this whole article was talking about millennials embracing this, and I'm like, I'm a millennial. I don't know anything about this. And
Because you're living in Rogersville.
yeah, and it's because I'm very absorbed in my day-to-day life and not somebody
Not
else's.
self-absorbed. And
Yeah.
You know what? You mentioned millennial. What I've been having some thoughts. What I think is interesting is the pace of our technology and cultural change is significant enough now that you do not have two generations sequentially that have the same experience.
No, there's a lot of bleed over.
I mean,
Holy moly, you
our
don't.
our great-great-grandparents.
Culture broadly, like
Yeah.
the mixing
Yeah.
of cultures.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
lost national
Our
identities as well.
great-great-grandparents and our great-grandparents lived somewhat similar lives,
Yeah.
technologically and culturally, and yet I'm living a very different cultural and technological life than my parents, and my children are living an extremely different technological and cultural life than I did growing up. So we have no commonality of technology or culture, and it's interesting. And I'm coining a phrase right here on the Planet 417 on the Waffle.
It's happening.
We're going to talk about these Sub-Z generations. So
Sub-Z,
any generation that came after Sub-Z, after Gen Z is a Sub-Z generation, they do not know life without technology. They don't.
They don't.
And we do. We're the Z's.
We're the gap.
The X.
The X,
we're
yeah.
the sub X.
Sub X. I was wondering which.
Sorry,
like,
I got
we
it
don't
wrong.
know Sub Z yet.
Sub X.
Yeah. Okay.
Sub X generation. That's Gen A, I think, is what they're about to call the next one. But Sub X generation. That's the phrase I'm wanting to really don't know that life without technology like X and the older people.
I'm doing my best to raise my girls in any glimmer of the childhood that I had. I can't give them the farm and the freeness to be able to roam around town. I can't do those things, right? That time has passed. It's like I explained to Evie. She's like, you lived on a farm. I'm like, yeah, I grew up on a farm. I just roamed around. I had all this freedom. I can't do that for her.
Yeah, I rode around in cars that did not have a single computer chip in them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, I can't do that. But I can, in general, limit, the tidal wave of new crap. I mean, they can, I watched some TV and played some video games and played outside. And I can do that for them, right? I can give them a combination of that. I can't, like I said, I can't. And, it's like I explained to her. Now I can't even afford to buy a 100-acre farm with a big house and barn in Rogersville, Missouri. I can't afford that, right?
So here's some markers.
I know,
for
right?
me. Here's some markers for me. So for me, we did not, my earliest memories, we did not have a color TV. Our TV was black and white.
Yeah.
Our
That's where
phone,
it started for us.
We had one phone, it was on the wall. It had a cord on it. And we actually, I don't know, this may be even more rare. We got milk delivery.
Oh, and
We had a milkman.
we'd never had that.
We had a milkman. I remember having a milkman. I was a little bitty kid in Springfield. We had a milkman. You'd put the bottles out and you'd bring the bottles in.
Yeah.
We had a milkman.
Beautiful.
What do you guys remember?
I just did a little, anyway, I just learned about the milk wars back in the,
Like if you go way back, what would those are the things that I think that's my technological beginning. That's what I had. That's my
Like
earliest
the
memories.
tech beginning.
Yeah, we didn't have 8-track players. We had a record player.
And see, my first, obviously,
Yeah.
like, I have a very distinct vision of a Sony color TV that was
Okay.
the step from the wood box
Did
Zeniths,
it have
right?
a remote control?
Oh, yeah, we
it-
had remotes.
oh, wow.
Was it wired or not wired? Wireless.
It wasn't wireless. No,
Yeah.
we didn't. There was nothing wireless in our house to begin with.
Can you imagine that, a wired remote control?
Yeah,
We had 'em.
I do remember those. Yeah.
Oh, no, we had wireless remotes. We did have those. But I mean, I remember the box Zeniths, right? People had them in their houses.
Yeah.
And I remember the gigantic projector screen TVs. Remember
big
those
screen
that people
TVs.
put in their basements
Yeah,
that were
they were real
terrible?
grainy.
They
Yeah.
were
Those-
still
you had to
in
look at 'em-
people's
you had to
basements.
look at 'em
For them
straight on.
Rich people
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
them things.
And they didn't work very good.
And
I
they
remember those.
weighed 7 tons.
Yeah,
And,
they
you know, I remember the floppy disks and the, obviously the internet coming to our house for the first time. I remember all those things, but I mean,
Now, when you say floppy disks, were they actually floppy, or were
Yeah,
they
they're floppy.
They were the 5 1/4
I remember
inch.
floppy
the
disks,
5
yeah.
1/4 inch ones. Okay.
But I need to plug something before we run out of time.
Oh, yeah.
So the PTA Best Foot Forward
I was getting ready to go there.
shoe drive or shoe giveaway is happening this Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon.
Yeah.
It's the 3rd this Saturday. Simultaneously in the parking lot, local churches, a lot of them, have gathered, and along
Most
with
of them,
Safe
yeah.
Haven, most of them, I think, and they are giving away school supplies in the parking lot. So about 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., you can patiently get through the school line, and the churches will be there, and they will pray over the supplies, and they will pray for the people receiving them. And then you can come into the FEMA gym and get, every kid in Rogersville can get a brand new pair of shoes and some hygiene items and a pair of socks, and it'll be great.
And that's this Saturday.
This Saturday.
Yes,
10 to
and the
noon.
Wildcat Closet is open.
I want to talk to you about that after the show. I have
do that.
a special offer I want to.
Okay, cool.
I want to talk to you about.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's a really cool event. And when you say patiently, it's not like, don't think long line, you're going to be waiting there forever. They zoom them through
It
there.
moves, once
pretty-
the initial line
Yeah.
gets through, it moves pretty quick.
Pretty quick. So
We try to
pretty
move
awesome
quick.
the way that how the churches came together
Yeah.
to pool their money and their resources to make sure nobody has the stress of needing to go purchase
Truly
school supplies.
Put their best foot forward.
Yeah, it's
That's-
pretty
that's the
awesome.
goal.
And then the next piece was coming together like, hey, if you guys are doing the shoe thing, why don't we do
Yeah.
this together? Kind of.
Yeah.
So it's pretty awesome that they're going simultaneously. I love
You know
it.
what?
I love our community. I mean, it's everything we were just talking about in that deep philosophical conversation. Your conclusion, let's just
Yeah.
love our circle well, and there it is. I mean,
Hold on,
it's
I want
pretty
to make one
neat.
point. One of my favorite meetings of the year is when I get to go to the meeting. I call them the church ladies. And
Yeah.
it is the meeting of the group of women who organize the backpack from the different churches.
Yeah.
I absolutely love going to that meeting every year to hear them talk and the joy that they have and the different perspectives of the different congregations. It's always funny. It reminds me of my childhood because I spent a lot of time in groups of, kind of strong community-minded women, and it is very reminiscent of that.
You get a cup of unsugared lemonade or
You know,
Kool-Aid while you're
There's
there.
there's even no refreshments. We
Yeah.
don't even need refreshments. They're just refreshing. But
You give me 2 Nilla wafers and some red Kool-Aid that tastes most like water.
Church ladies fed us
Tastes
better
like
than
them.
your church ladies.
tastes like water.
I don't know what y'all were doing.
We got to make that container of Kool-Aid go all summer.
Eating
Yes.
good in Texas County. That's funny. So I love that meeting. It's one of my favorite. I just sit there and kind of grin like an idiot, and I'm just like, oh, this is so fun.
It
to
is
to be
great.
around them.
It's
Yeah.
a reminder that we still have something special here in Rogersville.
And I will say too, our Rogersville community has had some horrible things happen recently. We have lost 2 Rogersville moms in car accidents. We have had cancer diagnoses come back. It is shocking what's happened. And we need to pray for those people and pray for this community because it's had its fair share. And holy moly, please drive safe.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
Be
I
responsible.
Construction.
Yeah, just slow down. You're
just
not
slow
getting there any
down.
faster.
Drive safe.
I am that guy driving 50 every day on 60 in that
Don't be
construction zone.
distracted. Don't,
You know.
if you're tired, don't drive. If,
People
just,
blowing by me.
It's getting really scary, guys. It's getting really scary. So we got to take care of each other.
Put my hat on.
Okay, I think those are my final.
I think that's a good place to end it right
Yeah.
there.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week with more waffle.
Blessings.